Hello and welcome to Solutions Journalism Network's basic training video on how to produce strong solution stories for TV news. We call this kind of reporting hope with teeth because solutions journalism uses rigorous investigative techniques to tell not just the story of a problem, but also what's working to fix it. We know that relentlessly negative coverage turns people off. Viewers are tired of bad news that does not include any mention of what others are doing to resolve problems. Reporting only on problems is not enough anymore to satisfy viewers, especially those under 35. Sure, you can tell heartwarming stories about people helping each other, but you can also rigorously investigate what's actually working on a broader scale. For whom? For how much? For how long? That's the kind of coverage that audiences are seeking now. A large nationwide study from the media research firm Smith Geiger confirms viewers in all demographics across partisan lines want to see more solutions reporting. Regular solutions coverage makes a station stand out from others and builds brand loyalty. And they also found that viewers are even more interested in seeing an out-of-town story about a solution than a local story about a problem. Viewers need more. They want the whole story. Not just the problem, the starting point of your reporting, the basic building block of any narrative. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Audiences also seek other kinds of information, background explainers, personal stories of impact, how to help resources. But people are also looking for credible evidence on things that are actually working, on the ground, in real time. That's solutions journalism. In this video, we'll look at what solutions journalism is, and just as importantly, what it isn't. We'll look at TV stories that include all 4 criteria of solutions journalism, and we'll share some strategies for applying solutions concepts throughout your reporting process. So what is solutions journalism? What does it mean exactly? Solutions journalism is just good journalism. Rigorous, evidence-based reporting on responses to systemic problems. Here are what we call the 4 pillars of solutions journalism. First, it looks at a response to a designated problem. It provides insights and details on how the response works. It includes quantitative and qualitative evidence of the effectiveness of the problem, not just its good intentions and hopes. And finally, it discusses any limitations in the approach. It avoids PR and hype, and it does not come across as a fluffy, feel-good feature. It's an approach that makes a difference for viewers and journalists. You don't just have to take our word for it. Here's what the team at the NBC affiliate KXAN in Austin, Texas has to say about the impact solutions journalism made in their newsroom.
I think often we hear from viewers that you're only telling us about the bad news and you're only investigating the problems. And sometimes we don't think about how do we get past that problem? What's it going to take to fix whatever is wrong with our community? And we had a management team that really got behind this. Our news director, our station manager, our marketing director, our sales team, they wanted to learn more about this. They saw the value of this, not just for the station, but for the community.
To be able to get emails to this day about story ideas, that's amazing. We are more than 6 months in now, and we are still getting content for this idea of solutions journalism that is really become a station-wide effort now.
Doing solutions journalism doesn't mean that you stop covering problems or that reporting on problems is a bad thing. Instead, it's a way to look at those problems through a different lens. Let's look now at 3 examples of TV solution stories. As you watch each one, look for the specific elements of the 4 criteria of solutions journalism. Not just the response to the problem with details and insights about it, but also evidence of its success and acknowledgement of its limitations.
We have been all over Southwest Florida reporting on the damage, looking at the hardest hit areas which surround us. But here in Babcock Ranch, it looks like nothing ever happened. For full transparency, it's October the 11th. It's been less than 2 weeks since Hurricane Ian came through as a Category 4. And everything looks picture perfect. Doing this well in that big of a storm was no accident. It was part of Sid Kittson's decades-long plan.
When I look at what happened over the last couple weeks, my heart just breaks for so many people, you know, here in Southwest Florida. The destruction, the misery that you see is just unimaginable. We have our own employees who have lost their homes and lost so many of their belongings. At the same time, you know, we at Babcock Ranch hopefully can give people hope. And the hope is that it can be done right. And all the people, the planners, the engineers, all the people that came together to make this possible at Babcock Ranch should be proud.
Kittson is a former NFL player who later became an eco-conscious developer, purchasing nearly 100,000 acres in Charlotte County. Most of that is now a nature preserve, but on 18,000 acres, he designed what he calls the country's first solar-powered, storm-resistant town. So you have a property that is eco-friendly. It's now storm-tested. How do you keep it affordable when the price of building is just skyrocketing?
And I think there are a couple ways to look at that. If you look at Babcock Ranch today, a Category 4 hurricane just blew through here. And our recovery, literally, we were up and running the next day. And most of what we were doing is maybe replacing a few house shingles here and there, some signage.
Obviously, to power an entire town, you're going to need more than just a couple solar panels on roofs. You're going to need this, a solar farm. Yes, this is a couple miles from the center of Babcock Ranch. It's 900 acres of land with nearly 700,000 solar panels. He teamed up with utility company Florida Power and Light, harnessing the sun to generate 150 megawatts. It's a test site of sorts. Battery backups for cloudy days, still attached to the grid. But FPL says it was the underground infrastructure that kept everything working during the hurricane. In this town, you'll find no power lines. Those are often the first to go during a storm. Do you want this to be the national model?
Yes, but you know, it's interesting. I'm very optimistic about what we can do in this country.
They released the plans in 2005, started construction on Earth Day in 2016. Babcock's team of scientists, engineers, and builders had a tough task when they designed the town, making a community less vulnerable to major storms. So Kittson chose land that was 30 feet above sea level, invested in stormwater drains everywhere, and built ponds to catch the water. The trees and shrubs here, native to Florida, so the ecosystem is naturally fitted for the weather. Every structure is built above code.
I do believe that there are going to be others out there that are going to look at Babcock Ranch and say, we can do it better. And I'm okay with that.
You're good with that?
I'm absolutely good with that.
An example of how we should build future communities for a better relationship with Mother Earth.
Did you identify all 4 criteria for solutions journalism? This solutionary story by the Graham Media Group shows a response to the problem of hurricane damage, describes details and insights about how a Florida community was built to withstand storms. It shows evidence of success in that only a few buildings sustained minor damage. And it includes limitations in the approach, namely that it takes years to develop and millions of dollars.
Portland, Maine is known for its lobster rolls, lighthouses, and for being in a state with a coastline longer than California's. The city has long been a tourist hub. But for some of the world's most vulnerable, Portland is more than just vacation land.
Hello. Hi. How are you with Unit 1?
Manta Wewe is from the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa. She's looking for an apartment to rent in downtown Portland, and her checklist is simple. When Wewe and over 200 African asylum seekers arrived in Portland in June, the city turned its basketball arena, the Portland Exposition Building, into a temporary shelter for the migrants. Weiwei says she fled her home in the Congo to escape a forced marriage after losing her husband and death threats from family members. Weiwei is part of an unprecedented wave of African asylum seekers entering the U.S. at the southern border. A majority of the migrants are from the Congo and Angola. They leave their homelands first by plane to South America. Most then travel on foot, occasionally taking buses and boats to the U.S. It is a 10,000-mile journey that takes months to complete, and upon arriving, many of the migrants pick Portland, Maine as their destination. Portland is one of the widest cities in America, and the migrants picked the city because of its reputation for being a welcoming place for immigrants. The city has embraced the migrants, largely because it needs people. Specifically, it needs workers.
Portland has attracted a lot of people from out of state, including a lot of younger people. It's a very attractive place to live, but it's not enough. It's not nearly enough. If we did not have the migrant population, all of Maine would be in natural population decline.
The city and the state are battling a workforce shortage. Maine has the oldest population in the country. The median age is over 44, nearly 7 years older than the national median age. Also, birth rates in the state are declining.
Fewer and fewer people, fewer and fewer jobs, fewer and less output, and the economy actually shrinks.
Even the state's signature industry, tourism, has started feeling the impact of the issue.
We've reached somewhat of a tipping point in that many of our members are faced with not having enough employees, some of them needing to close sections of their hotel because they can't maintain them properly, or some restaurateurs not being able to serve lunch anymore because they don't have a staff to provide the service. We could see a decline in the continued growth of this industry, which is a very important sector of Maine's economy.
As the rest of the nation debates whether to welcome immigrants or keep them out, Portland is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to support the new residents. In 2015, Portland started the Community Support Fund after former Maine Governor Paul LePage cut general assistance funding for asylum seekers in the state. Since then, the city has set aside about $200,000 each year to assist asylum seekers until they receive work permits and begin working. The fund helps with rental assistance, drug prescriptions, and other basic items they need. Local officials believe it is the only city in America with this type of fund.
Wow, and where did you learn that?
My friend.
John Mabika is in his home in Westbrook, a suburb of Portland. He is also from the Congo, where he used to work as a construction foreman. He arrived in Portland in 2017 and relied on the Community Support Fund before he got his work permit and resumed working in construction.
The biggest challenge for us, the transition period is at a period in which you are waiting for your work permit to come, then you can start working. You've been someone who used to do everything by yourself, by your own, but now you will be depending on the state, on the city to support you.
In June, the number of new arrivals spiked, draining the fund, but residents rallied again, donating a total of $800,000.
It's about the whole community stepping up to help. And we have seen from, starting with the leaders in the Congolese and the Angolan community in the shelter every day, talking to these families, understanding what their needs are.
I say you repeat.
Our school department stepped up and put kids into summer school classes. Volunteers are doing adult ed. It has been remarkable to watch.
But some residents remain concerned about the financial implications of these public investments.
Probably the biggest issue is that all these people, when they get here, they're not even legally allowed to work for 6 months. Them not being able to work, they won't be able to, they legally can't contribute to the community in ways that they would like to, or, everyone would like to see them yet. So you'll have these kids going into the school system, but no added tax revenue from these people coming in.
$1 million a year we spend on corporate tax breaks to bring businesses, and we're like, let's do it. Why wouldn't it be same for young families, for workers?
Portland has started seeing returns on its investments in immigrants. In 2016, foreign-born residents in the Metro Portland area, despite making up only 4.6% of the population, accounted for 5.1% of the working-age population and contributed over $1 billion to the Portland metro area's GDP. They also paid more than $1 million in federal taxes.
Maine's current governor, Janet Mills, overturned her predecessor's restrictions on general assistance for asylum seekers. Explaining her decision in an op-ed, she wrote, "Let's put an end to the complaints, put aside the politics, and do the logical thing. Welcome a workforce that is right on our doorstep, and put them on the path to employment to build and strengthen our economy." While Portland is eager to embrace the migrants as a key to economic growth, its new arrivals are seeking a different kind of stability.
We are looking for security, for the safety. You need to be safe, you know. Yeah, that is the only one thing everyone is fighting for.
What are the 4 solutions elements in this story by the Scripps Newsy franchise? It's a response to the problems of immigration needs and labor shortages in Maine, describes details and insights about how one city supports immigrants and provides jobs. It shows evidence of success in that employed immigrants contributed more than $1 billion to the local economy and paid more than $1 million in federal taxes. And it also includes limitations in the approach, namely, the public costs that must be incurred because immigrant job seekers must wait 6 months before they can legally begin to work.
This week, KXAN revealed how some doctors disciplined in other states have come here to Texas, able to practice with clean records without patients knowing their histories. And we are committed to not only exposing these problems, but also exploring solutions.
KXAN investigator Matt Grant shows you how one state is tackling this problem by giving the power back to patients.
If you want to look up your doctor, what you find could be determined by where you live.
So if you search their record here in Texas, it would show a completely clear record.
Correct. A 3-month KXAN investigation found nearly 50 doctors able to practice in Texas with clean records, with no mention of disciplinary actions in other states, including having their licenses suspended, surrendered, and revoked, information doctors are required to report.
And if these doctors are required to self-report, who's ensuring that they actually are?
We're trying to provide transparency to patients and the public.
While Texas promises transparency, we found it lacking compared to other states. We looked at one doctor who's licensed in both Texas and North Carolina. On the Texas Medical Board's website, you'll find no record of any out-of-state disciplinary actions or malpractice claims. Compare that to the North Carolina Medical Board, which reveals a 2018 public letter of concern, reciprocal letters of reprimand from 4 other states, and 2 medical malpractice settlements. The board found he misinterpreted a 5-centimeter mass, that's the size of a lime, on an MRI as normal, when in fact it was cancer. North Carolina patients have direct access to all these records, while Texas patients are left in the dark.
If we are aware of an action, then we post it on our website and it never goes away.
Jean Fisher Brinkley is a spokesperson for the North Carolina Medical Board. She says North Carolina began posting disciplinary actions online 22 years ago. Transparency efforts continued even further in 2007 after a law was passed making hospital privilege actions and malpractice settlements, which are often settled in secret, public. Brinkley says there was fierce opposition to that.
You know, it's a big emotional topic. You know, a lot of clinicians really feel strongly that sometimes those things are settled for business reasons and not because their care was insufficient.
Are you ready to become a more informed patient?
The state ultimately sided with transparency, believing more information and easy access to records are the best way to serve patients. Another obstacle the state had to overcome, building a massive database and getting the public to use it. Brinkley acknowledges the way North Carolina operates is not necessarily the norm, but says it's a model other states should consider.
Most of the time, there's nothing to find. But if there is something to find, wouldn't you rather know about it before?
After we started asking questions, the TMB promised a fix, saying it will now post new out-of-state disciplinary actions online. But under a state law, a description of that information should already be public, something our investigation found is not routinely happening.
As far as does the medical board go and review all 154,000 of our licensees to make sure that they've disclosed everything that's come in, that's something that's a little more time intensive that the medical board has not in the past done.
We asked for examples of what's being done now and were sent a doctor whose public profile was updated to say action taken in Michigan in 2019, with reciprocal discipline in 3 other states. No other details were mentioned. So what was that action? Texas doesn't say. Turns out that doctor, though, is also licensed in North Carolina, and by checking its website, only then could we see the doctor's full disciplinary history, with links to official documents showing he was placed on probation and fined $5,000 for multiple violations, including improperly dispensing medications without conducting an exam.
What is the standard of transparency that Texans deserve?
I asked the Texas Medical Board if it would consider adopting a model similar to North Carolina's as a way to increase transparency, but didn't hear back. The TMB never addressed why it isn't fully following the law, instead saying it has historically relied on doctors to self-report out-of-state disciplinary actions due to staffing and time. In Austin, Matt Grant, KXAN investigates. In Texas, doctors must report disciplinary actions and most criminal offenses to the medical board upon renewal. That's every 2 years. In North Carolina, it's 60 days.
Now, we asked Texas officials if they would consider that here, but we're told it would require actually changing state law. There are other resources you can use to look up your doctor. To find those and to see our entire Still Practicing series, go to the investigative section of KXAN.com.
Did you catch all 4 solution story elements in this piece by KXAN in Austin? First, it shows a response to the problem of physician license transparency. It describes details and insights into how one state is addressing the problem more successfully. It shows evidence of success in their approach, such as the direct access to relevant records in North Carolina. And it also includes limitations, in that a database had to be built and state laws must still be reformed to make more progress. To recap, your stories need the following elements to qualify as solutions journalism, even if it's just a brief one-line mention in a quick day turn. Specifically, it must make problem solving the center of your story around which the other elements revolve, dive deep into the insights and how-to details of the response, look at wide-scale systemic responses to a problem, not individual do-gooders, provide some kind of evidence of the impact and effectiveness of the response, make sure to point out limitations, challenges, or concerns about the approach. Let's look more closely at exactly how to do solutions journalism for TV. First of all, you may be wondering, can solutions journalism actually fit into a 2-minute piece? Yes, absolutely. It may be lighter on depth, but if you include at least a sentence or 2 on each of the 4 criteria of solutions journalism, it's certainly achievable. Here's a very basic formula for a 2-minute TV story that includes all 4 criteria of solutions journalism. First, you can start with a person's story, 2 or 3 sentences outlining their struggles, plus a short soundbite. Then describe the general problem briefly in another 2 or 3 sentences. Another short soundbite from an expert that clarifies the problem. Now describe the solution in 2 to 3 sentences with a short soundbite from someone who's benefited from it. Follow this with some evidence of success in a couple short sentences, maybe a graphic. And you can wrap up with at least 1 line about a drawback, obstacle, or ongoing challenge, some kind of limitation of the solution. And that's it, you've done it. A 2-minute story that includes all 4 elements of solutions journalism, even if it's just a short mention. Here's a 1-minute, 15-second piece that hits all the criteria of solutions journalism. Can you identify all the necessary solution story elements here?
More than 80% of the students in Castleberry ISD come from families struggling financially. The district worked to give most of the students computers.
We have one-to-one computers for basically 4th grade on, but they're might as well be boat anchors, because what can you do with it if you cannot connect to the internet?
So the district invested $600,000 in these towers to send the school's own Wi-Fi signal out.
A cell phone network, basically like AT&T or T-Mobile would have. But instead of using an existing carrier, we have our own.
Who knew the project would wrap up right when coronavirus struck?
This is a huge game changer for us.
We're not out scrambling, trying to buy hotspots, things of that nature.
Other districts have reached out trying to copy what Castleberry is doing. It was easier here because the district is just 7 square miles, but it could help the bigger districts fill the gaps and help students like they have in Castleberry.
And I've had several of them actually tell me how cool this is. They're thankful for it. They no longer have to use their cell phone to do their homework.
What makes this short report from KXAS in Fort Worth a solution story? Well, first, it responds to the problem of internet access to online schools. It describes some details and insights about the towers they built. It talks about the evidence of success that's made other school districts want to copy this model. And it points out limitations in the approach, namely the cost and the geography, all in 75 seconds. So how do you find solution stories? How to cover a huge problem that seems intractable without making your solution story look simplistic or seem like hype? Carve out a small slice of the problem. Remember, you're not looking for a magic bullet because there probably isn't one. So define your particular area of interest within it, such as education, housing, employment, vulnerable populations, transportation, or something else altogether. Here's a good interview question that can lead you directly to solution story ideas. Make sure to regularly ask your sources, who's doing it better? They may have good thoughts to offer, but might not provide this information unless you ask. And start asking your colleagues if there's a solutions angle to the stories pitched in editorial sessions. Also, ask yourself, is there a general lack of awareness about the story you want to cover? If so, perhaps it's better to do a story that exposes more of the problem first. But when the problem is clearly understood and people still do not know enough about effective responses, a solution story can provide the fresh angles and insights that people are seeking. How much and what kind of evidence is enough to qualify for a solution story? Remember, most early stage fixes don't have much evidence. So if you cover something like this, be sure to also tell your audience what you don't know, and that you'll circle back to it when more is known, and then mark your calendar as a reminder. Please use our Solution Story Tracker to help you find examples of what's working. With a database of almost 14,000 stories that have been vetted for the 4 criteria of solutions journalism. Use the tracker to get a general overview of what's working for your topic question and to find relevant sources you may want to contact. So how and where can solution stories fit into your newscast? Show producers, your role is very important in conveying your station's commitment to solutions coverage beyond the impact that one solution story may have. All the solutions elements don't have to appear in any one package. For example, have a reporter show and tell what works, or break out evidence into a graphic, or cover limitations in a Q&A with the anchor, or tease to solutions coming up on air or online. For a more in-depth approach, create a super block around one aspect of a problem that you want to highlight. Look at every part of that story slice. Investigate the problem, provide background explainers, tell stories about the people who are suffering or who are helping, and give useful tips and point to resources. And also highlight what's working to address the problem systemically, providing evidence of success and limitations in the approach. Now, a solutions-oriented super block could easily take up an entire A block. But if that's not something you want to do, spread these stories throughout the day and promote them from show to show. Or instead, you could distribute the same material throughout the week, or even package it together for a weekend special as an introduction to a live town hall, for example. Or expand the content to digital, OTT, podcasts, or even talk shows. Interested to learn more about solutions journalism? We've got some great resources on our website. Please check out our Learning Lab, where you'll find our basic solutions journalism toolkit with answers to many more of your questions, plus guides on individual issues and topics, and our TV playbook. It's a rich source of TV solution story examples, case studies from our TV partners, and tips on best practices for covering TV news with a solutions perspective in mind. And here are other ways to connect with us. We provide a variety of regular newsletters, updates on solutions topics, platforms to interact with others interested in solutions journalism around the world on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we offer occasional funded grant opportunities too. Learn more by joining SJN's hub at solutionsjournalism.org. And last but not least, please send us your solution stories for consideration to include in our Solutions Story Tracker. We'd love to highlight your work. Thank you for your time today. Please contact Carolyn Robinson, SJN's Director of Broadcast Partnerships, for more ways we can help. We're glad to assist you and your team to produce more solutions journalism.